Welcome everyone, welcome back to the 0 to 100 series where we code our fuel trailer script. And before we get started, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone interacting on my videos. I really do appreciate it, and just, big thanks to everyone subscribing to it. It does help and I really do appreciate it. Right, for today's video, I like to keep it a bit simple. I know there's still quite a lot that has to be done, and a lot that we haven't achieved yet. Right, in our threads, remember we had an issue with our add target model for the trailers where we couldn't pick up the trailer. Right, and I deduced that it had to be is target vehicle dead, the function, and maybe is vehicle a trailer, but this is the one I found out was the issue. Right, there's a few things I've changed and implemented. Right, I mean I can clean this up, but it isn't necessary to be there, even though quite helpful. But it just makes it seem very untidy, so let me just do that. Fantastic, I don't need that anymore. Right, so in essence, all I did was add the health of the entity, that is the overall health of it, the body health, engine health, and whether or not it is destroyed. Now, I think body health and health are quite similar, and you'll see if we do hop in server. I'm not sure if I will yet, but the issue came from the distance over here. Before it was 2.0, and literally just by changing it to 3.0 made it work again. So I reduced it to 2.0 because I wanted to be more accurate, right, and shorten the distance to which it has to check. But in doing so, closest vehicle or vehicle coordinates was null, which meant that these couldn't execute, and through an error which made this function not execute properly, and then give an error to QB target. Okay, now is vehicle a trailer? Yeah, that was basically it. I think get closest trailer. Let me just double check. Yeah, I think that was it. So what I want to do today is basically just go through the logic of the script step by step and just kind of get an idea of how it's supposed to work again, because I think I've lost touch with it, because we're coding on and off. Like, I really try and limit myself to only work on it once every day, and that period in between that I'm not working on it does have a toll and an impact, right? It definitely has a big influence. Right. Even though it's good to take a break, it is always good to take a break from coding. That is something I've learned very early on. Once you get stuck a bit, get up, take a walk, have a breather, go outside, drink a cup of coffee, just let your mind flow. And usually what happens is your mind clicks and you get ideas, and makes everything okay again. Right, I think let's start with the threads, because these are supposed to run continuously. So logically, we initialize trailers to be an empty table. Okay, and for each entry in our trailers.info, we extract the data and create a new entry in our trailers table with the name of entry, which is gonna be the trailer name. Am I right? Yeah, so it should be fuel trailer. And we basically just put the model in and not any other data. We might come back to that. Right, so maybe in here I do new file, notes dot, just make it a text, right? I don't know what that does. What does that do? I click on it. I don't know. Yeah, let's not do that. Right, doesn't matter too much. All I want to do is basically just grab that. Right, and then below it maybe have something like this gets the trailer data from config. At the moment, just saving the models to a table could be useful to save all data. I mean, it could be, it could not be. That's just a note. Let's just work with it for now. Right, and then we have something similar for the stations. Right, stations, empty table, and then for each entry in the stations locations, we grab the entry and create a new entry within stations, taking in the model. So for our stations locations, we get station 1 model, and we'll obviously have a position as well. Right, then we have this thread, which we could call this, or just not call, but you know, what is it called? Not identify, but you know what I want to say. I hope you do. Anyway, I'm just gonna explain what it does. So this is basically our target thread, right? Creates target options on models and bones. Okay. So we have our decor register, and it'll just register our fuel decor. My language, my tongue, my brie. So that is what that's supposed to do. So we have a local with our model, our ped model, like our boss ped, which we save to a variable which is stored client side. And we create the ped at this position with 2 variables. What we can do is probably have, let me look, create ped, create ped. What if I do ped on a freeze it task combat ped? Set ped. I know there's a native to prevent it from running away. saying it, but the PED that you've created. Okay, that's just wasting time. So maybe set entity invincible, that is one of them. So it's a pattern, doesn't diffuse, able to stay, invincibility status. Set entity, ordinates, rotation velocity, heading, draw outline shader, alpha anim speed as mission entity can be damaged. Dynamic heading, health invincible. Okay, I think for now we don't care too much, and I still have my JavaScript code selected, but it's fine, it's not too much different. Right, I'll just do that and that and that. Set entity can be damaged. We'll do boss ped false. So he will be immune to damage. Okay. Right, while boss ped is 0 weight, so I think what we should do is have that after the weight, in case our boss ped has not been set yet. Right? So once it is set, this while loop will stop and we will set it so that it cannot be damaged. Right, now we have our config eyes, QB target. This seems perfectly fine, right? I think what I want to do is just add a space in there. Yeah, I guess let's start with view trailers. So what I'm going to do is just find all instances of. So we'll have register net event, view trailers, perfectly fine. At event handler, we'll do set options and show our context menu. Right, set options goes through a trailer list again. And every time we set the options, we have yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I was just thinking that this is very similar to that line of code where we set the models in the trailer thingy, but that's fine. So for basically each trailer, and instead of v, let me just do trailer. I mean, that just helps make more sense logically. So for each trailer in pairs, right? So basically for each entry in trailers, well, in pairs, c.trailers info do. Right, trailer list is, well, this would be the first entry, and inserting the data. What we could do alternatively is, instead of having that, we could have a, what that will do is, instead of this being numbered, what'll happen is it'll be named field trailer, for example. So that's not a bad idea. right? However, trailer list is supposed to be used in our context menu. Let me just see what's cracking here. When we set the options, we also register the menu, which is fine. Taking in trailer list as options, totally fine. I'm happy with that. Right, and afterwards we show the context menu. So it might not be necessary to set the options every time this event gets triggered, but only on the resource start. So what I'll do is on resource start, right, we will do the following: set options. I'm not sure if it'll work in here. I'm not entirely confident in the setup because I have used it before and it didn't work for me, so I've lost faith in it, but it doesn't matter. Right, so once the resource starts, we set the options and register our context, and that should be fine, alright, because we then trigger an event to show this menu. Excuse me, and once this is shown, like show context, trailer menu, we will have these values, right? The event that gets triggered on on the click is by trailer, and those are arguments. Let me just check. Let's go look at by trailer. Right, it takes in data, perfectly fine. If not is clear to spawn, then we notify and bail out. Right, I'll delete those notes. And we have local has enough. Has enough money is data.amount, but this is a function. So has enough does what? Has enough. If our framework is QB, then our player data, else we don't care right now because we are focusing on QB core. Right, then if our money type is bank, we get the player's bank account and return true if he has enough. Right, else we'll just return false, right? So we don't have to care about a false within this if statement, because if any of these two are true, which are the only two possibilities, then it'll return true way before it gets to return false. So that's perfectly fine. Else if we have no framework, we'll just automatically return true, which is perfectly fine. Because all this does is ask if we can buy a trailer. So if we have enough money, then we will do a callback awaiting to remove the money. If it has been successfully removed, we just print a debug statement, notify, and we spawn a trailer, specific name and capacity. And then we also have like an error message, which is perfectly fine. If name is fuel trailer, this is basically just a testing thingy. So what I can do for now is I'll just comment it out because it isn't needed. It is absolutely not needed, right? I believe this was just for debugging when we first tested it. Right, so that is basically the gist of it. We know spawn trailer works and all that stuff works, right? This isn't really the logic I wanted to check, right? However, I just wanted to do it because it just gives me a bit of confidence, knowing that it does work, right? Now, adding a target bone, let's skip that, because the thing that's bothering me the most is adding the target model for trailers and getting that to work properly. Well, technically not, but the refuel menu, that side of things, is actually my biggest pain point, to be honest. So, trigger an event refuel menu. Refuel menu will basically just call a function called input prompt. Input prompt does what? A bunch of things. So maybe we can clean it up a bit, if possible. Right, so may refuel is null. Starting off, initializing it at null. Then we just print a debug statement that this function has been called, and then we assign our target vehicle.vh and target vehicle.coordinates to lib.get closest vehicle from the player's location, and again 3 radius 3 and true to include our vehicle, because we have seen that that was an issue before. Right, local vehicle fuel level is math.floor get fuel level. Right. What does this do? It initializes level to null and the type to the fuel type's default. Now, if we are using TI fuel, then we use the export to get the level and type. Though we're only concerned with the fuel level, we just set the target's fuel level to level, and we also return level. Right. And that would be stored in our vehicle fuel level. Then we tell it if our fuel level is 100, then we tell them, look, the vehicle is already full, we ain't doing this, right? So maybe what we should do is have it set to null before we assign values, right? And then we say while vehicle fuel level is null, then end, and in here we will wait 10 milliseconds. Where did we also have that? It was just here. So what I'll do is run this, and it is not a then, it is a do, my bad. Is target vehicle dead? Where did I have that wait function? Hold up. Hold up. Timeout. Here we go. Local timeout. There we go. Fantastic. And we go back to pin. Right, so let me just look at this logic. So we set a timeout to 10 seconds while level is null. I don't want a 10 seconds. That is way too long to wait for an assignment. So maybe let's do 1 second, right? So our timeout is 1 second, and then whilst our fuel level will still wait 10 milliseconds, right? So while it is null and not assigned yet by that function, we wait 10 milliseconds, timeout is whatever is minus 10. And if our timeout is 0, then if timeout is 0, and now I'm also seeing a problem with the previous occurrence of it. So if our timeout is 0 and our fuel level is still null, then we just return, right? Else, I don't think we have to have an else, because as soon as that has a value, then it'll just hop out of the while loop, right? Let's pin this again and go to the other timeout, which is right over here. Similarly, in our get fuel level, I mean, all of these timeouts might just make everything lag. And maybe that is the problem, right? We do want a timeout here. Why? Because we need to make sure that fuel level is set. And not continue until it has. Here, I don't believe we care that much. Because I believe... What? Yeah. Okay. So I believe an export makes it wait by default. I may be wrong. I'm no expert. But we'll have a single timeout here. And this will be important for us because we need to make sure that the vehicle has a fuel level before we continue, right? That is why I want it there. And then if the fuel level is 100, then it is already full. We return, we bail out. Okay, and then it just tells us the closest vehicle and its coordinates. We wait another 100 milliseconds. I don't know why. We'll just wait 0. I don't know why we wait 100 milliseconds. Might as well just not wait. That makes no sense. Because we've already waited. No need to wait again. Then we just call the input dialog to gather a ton of info. And we just handle that logic. Right. If input 2 is null, there's the fuel type selector. Then our new type is default type. Otherwise our new type is just the input. Perfectly fine. Number 3 is our checkbox to refuel to max. Right, if it is null, then to max is false. Else, if it is false, then to max is false. Else, to max is true. Super simple. Then, if to number input 1 is null, so if we've not given it a fuel amount, or it is smaller than 1, and a target vehicle to max is false, then we also bail out and we tell it you may not refuel. Okay, and then we bail out. Maybe what I should do is, if the input is null, we also tell it may refuel is false and we bail out. Because we're returning, we need to set that before we continue, as we are doing here. Right. Otherwise, if the target vehicle's to max is true, then we need to give it. Actually, this might be illogical. It is not 100, but 100 minus vehicle fuel level, right? Because we already get the level of the car. So if we are fueling to max, then we can only put in what is still required. You get me? Because if we tell it, yeah, refuel to max, but put 100 liters in, even though there's only space for 40, then it won't make any sense. So then we tell it may refuel is true. Otherwise, target vehicle dot if amount is to number input 1. And may refuel is true. If input 4 is false, then that is the attached fueling checkbox. Attached fueling is false, otherwise attached fueling is true. And while not may refuel, wait. I believe this was done so that we don't trigger any of this before we have checked this. Right. So may refuel is null. Maybe what we should do is do while may refuel is null. That would be way better. And if may refuel, then set the nozzle to the vehicle. Let's just make that to 1 millisecond. We wait 1 second before we start the refuel timer. I think that is stupid. We do maybe 100 milliseconds. I know why I did that initially, but now it doesn't seem logical. Right, if we may refuel, then we trigger those functions. Otherwise, we just return out of this function. Right. Setting the nozzle to the vehicle. We start by getting the playpad's ID and the bone index of the petrol cap, right? And then if we are doing detached fueling, we'll detach the entity and attach it to the car, which is currently not working, right? Otherwise, this is the function we're using right now. Task turn ped to face entity. We're taking the ped and facing it towards the car for a second. Then we wait 1 second. I don't know why we're doing that, but it doesn't matter. We'll wait 1 millisecond, load an animation dictionary and play an animation. Right, maybe this wait has to be equal to that so that we don't start playing an animation whilst we are turning. Maybe that's the logic behind it, because I think this will play the animation for this amount of milliseconds, and because we are waiting this amount, this has already been called, so we're stepping to the next one, which is wait. So these two will complete at the same time, and once those are complete, we'll load and play an anim. Okay. Then while is fueling, do these things. Right, where do we call or set is fueling? In refuel timer. Right, it starts off false, and then the first occurrence is in refuel timer, second as well, and the third occurrence is in set nozzle to vehicle. Right. Now let's look at this specifically. I think because we are using this variable in set nozzle to vehicle, which we call before refuel timer, is fueling is technically false when we call this function. So what's happening is it is just skipping over this. It's just skipping straight up. So what we'll have to do is either call refuel timer within set nozzle to vehicle, right? Like just before this, or right here. Alternatively, we'll have to call set nozzle to vehicle after refuel timer. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is just add to set nozzle to vehicle. Right, here's the thing. We want to call it just before we do is fueling. Why? Because we want to start the timer just before we actually start fueling, right? Otherwise it doesn't make sense. So refuel timer, and we'll create a thread. I think that right now is the most logical solution. Because when we call refuel timer, we'll go through this code, and within our thread we will set our is fueling. And because this will then be continuously running while we are not finished refueling, we will basically have a constant affirmation that is fueling is true, so that this while loop can remain doing its thing, or keep doing its thing, right? I think that is the best bet at the moment. So that should make this function logically correct. And it'll basically prevent us from taking control, play an action, and check for a button click. So I guess we could do 10 milliseconds. Or let's do one. Let's do one. That'll mean it'll almost happen every frame, which is supposed to be if we want to disable keys. Right. We'll just make sure that the entity exists when we call refuel timer. But I think let's take it out of there. And what we'll do is we'll call it in set nozzle to vehicle. Right. So just before we actually put the nozzle in the car, we need to make sure that it actually exists. That way we can then safely attach it to the car, knowing that it still exists, and a refuel timer isn't cluttered with a bunch of useless things. Right, so we'll just have our little timer thing. Delete that. I think what I want to do is just space it like that so that it looks neater. And yeah, okay. Current level once more would be get fuel without a wait function this time. Then interval is multiplier. Okay, if but is equal to interval, then we just say not full. Is fueling is still true. I think we tell it is fueling is true whilst we are running through this. Okay, because if we are done, right, and we set our fueling to false, we'll exit this, but we will not repeat this loop because we are done, which means done would be true and we're looking for a false done. Okay, so this should function as I'm hoping it does. Right, so basically at each interval we will still reaffirm that fueling is true, right? And and we will run through this. So is fueling is true. not full. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that, I'm going to paste that so that I can delete that. And I'm going to delete that so that we only have one debug statement because 3 is excessive. Set fuel of the target vehicle to current level plus 1. And target vehicle.n type. So instead of having the current level equal that, I think what we should have is target vehicle dot f amount, right? The amount of fuel that we have to put in, which would be 100 minus the amount. Am I right? Because where do we initialize this? That is the amount of fuel we have to put in, I mean. So that would theoretically then be the current level of the car, yes. So maybe we do math.floor and similar with this. Or alternatively, instead of doing multiple times and having basically a bunch of functions running at the same time, we call it over here. We'll floor it there. And because our input is technically integers, there is no floats, we just need 2 number there. So this should ensure that this is a whole number, same with current level. Right. So we just do 100 minus target vehicle.f amount. And we'll do what? Current level plus 1.0. This is important so that we set the level to a float type. And we set the new fuel type of the target vehicle. Current level is current level plus 1. Tick is equal to tick minus 1. Right. So those of you who watch both my series would know that initially in the heist script we tried this compact operator, if you will. And I did say that it is not usable. It actually is in Lua. Well, technically in Lua it is not available. However, CFX has, I can't remember what you call it, basically a library that allows us to do this. So this is still valid, right? Even though it's not valid in Lua itself, Lua for FiveM development does allow it because CFX allows it. Right, but for now, I'm going to roll with these because I need to finish my testing. Okay. So, we could even do 100.0 there, that's totally fine. Okay, and we have a tick. Tick is equal to tick minus 1, so we basically count down the amount of fuel we should put in. If current level is about 98 or 99, then we just say we are done, set the fuel to 100, call it a day, right? But if our tick gets to 0 or lower than 0, we also say done is true, and we've already set the fuel, which should theoretically already be at 100. And yeah, if it is cancelled, then done is true. If we are done, then his fueling is false. We could actually reduce that and do that. Alright. And then just return, because we have cancelled. And we could do the same thing here, right? Because we are done. And we should tell it this fueling is false. And to make it even more compact, we just add an or here, or cancelled. Then, boom. What am I doing? Right. And then we'll just draw text, which I think we should do every frame, which I thought I did initially, but have not done. Right, this should be drawn every frame, because if you only draw it every second and a half or half a second for a frame, you'll never see it. Right, so that may have been the issue with the raw text function thingy. Right, so that should be that. And then it is a pretty long episode. I know, I'm so sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Because I still enjoy being transparent and showing where I struggle. You know, because I think it's important too, you know, for everyone to learn that coding isn't always sunshine and roses. It is super rewarding when you finish a script and it works. It feels so great. It is inexplicable, like for real. But the struggle is also real, and it does get one down, but it is a good thing, right? So you can learn to, you know, push past it. You know, like my first FiveM script that I wrote, just to finish it took me like 2 years. I know it sounds crazy, but it's just because I kept putting it off, you know. I never pushed through that barrier of resistance. So just keep going. It is truly worth it, I promise. I promise. Nothing wrong with taking a break every now and then, like I have done, but, you know, always get back to it as soon as you can. So, on that note, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for all of your continued support. It means the absolute world to me. I really enjoy making these, so it's quite a blessing to see some people finding joy out of it. Thanks so much. I'll catch you in the next one.